As the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys, and this report literally came down from Clarence Hill, who's a very trusted source in Dallas. Shout out to Clarence Hill, does a great job. And this came in literally a minute ago, right as I'm doing this segment, so thank you, Clarence Hill, that CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys are reportedly not close to a deal, but the Cowboys are optimistic that it will get done. Now, I kind of take that with a little bit of a grain of salt because the fact that they've also said the same thing about Dak, and it sounds like they are nowhere near getting a contract done with Rain Dakota Prescott. But let's talk about CeeDee Lamb, though, because I was thinking about this today, and I did a CeeDee Lamb segment last week, and I don't think we give him enough credit, which is why it's so confusing why the Cowboys won't pay him. I don't think we give CeeDee Lamb enough credit for being the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL on the offensive side of the football. Because he is. At least he was last year, and I have no reason to believe that won't be the case this year. Well, what about Christian McCaffrey? Hey, very valuable. Listen, I think McCaffrey is the second best player in football. Love the guy. But if God forbid, that biggest knock on whatever, that Christian McCaffrey goes down, well, they still have Debo, and they still have George Kittle, and Juwan Jennings is an impact player, and Kyle Shanahan makes basically every running back work. It's just the fact that now he's got McCaffrey, it looks unstoppable. The Niners' offense will still be very productive, albeit not amazing, if Christian McCaffrey went down. Not Tyreek Hill. Well, they have Jalen Waddle. They have Raheem Mostert. They have a solid offensive line. They have a smart offensive coach. Tua is capable. They have pieces. Well, what if Jamar Chase went down? Yeah, that's what T. Higgins is there for, at least for this year. Joe Burrow's the second best QB in the league in my mind. Certainly a clear top 5. But in Dallas, Texas, it's a little bit of a different story. CeeDee Lamb goes down, Dallas is screwed. There's no other way to put it. They are screwed. And we could show you based on data and evidence from a year ago. So I was looking at this, and I did a deep dive on Friday's show, but it ties in really better to today's show. Because what is CeeDee Lamb in terms of a statistical output a year ago? How does it compare to other Cowboys receivers? Well, we could show you. Put up this graphic right now. 7 more 100-yard games than the next closest player on Dallas. 988 yards. Folks, almost 1,000 yards more than the next closest player on the Dallas Cowboys. 64 catches more than the next closest player on the Dallas Cowboys. This is from 2023, by the way. 79 targets more than the next closest player on the Dallas Cowboys. You ask, Bryson, what does this mean to me? Well, I'll show you exactly what it means to you. Let's go and put up this next graphic. What's the discrepancy? Where does that rank among NFL teams? Well, you see it right there. 7 more 100-yard games of the next closest player. That's the second biggest discrepancy in the National Football League to Detroit and Amon-Ra St. Brown. 988 yards more than the next closest player. Biggest discrepancy in the league last year. 64 catches more than the next closest Cowboy. That's the biggest discrepancy in the NFL last year. And finally, 79 targets more than the next closest player on the Dallas Cowboys. That, as you might have imagined and guessed, is the biggest discrepancy in the National Football League. Pretty simple. CeeDee Lamb's amazing, and the Cowboys receivers are mid on their best days. They had one Cowboys player that went over 100 yards for a single game last year. It was Brandon Cooks. He went for 100 yards a year ago. I think it was against the Giants. That's it. Jake Ferguson's never gone for 100 yards a year ago. You think about guys, again, Brandon Cooks only went for that once. Jalen Tolbert darn sure didn't go for over 100 yards. You keep looking down, Tony Pollard, if they thought he'd be a catch the ball in the backfield guy, no, nowhere near 100 yards catching the football. So, in other words, Dallas' offense is really limited and really reliant on Dak Prescott and on CeeDee Lamb. And when they're not clicking, as we saw in that Green Bay playoff game, that offense goes kaput because they don't have a running game as well to back them up. But also, too, because I was thinking about, sort of the, if we compared CeeDee Lamb to one of the better receivers in the NFL, one of the more productive receivers in the NFL, let's go and put up blind resume. I've grown very fond of blind resumes in 2024. I don't know why. I've used them for Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. I've used those for and against certain players. Let's put up the CeeDee Lamb blind resume, okay? Let's go and put this up, okay? So CeeDee is better than who? Who's CeeDee Lamb better than? Because those numbers across the board, other than total touchdowns, CeeDee Lamb is better than player X. So you see CeeDee Lamb on the left. You see mystery player on the right. And again, CeeDee Lamb right there, 600 more yards. Let's do some quick math. That's 41 more catches, 40 more targets. 1.1 more yards per catch, 12 more 20-plus yard catches, and tied 14 touchdowns to 14 touchdowns. You say, Bryson, who is this receiver? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go and put up the blind resume. Who is this football player? Oh, it's literally every single receiver on the Cowboys not named CeeDee Lamb combined. CeeDee Lamb put up better numbers by himself than the entire Dallas Cowboys receiving corps, minus CeeDee Lamb, put together. In other words, if he's not there, they're an objectively bad offense. Now, I'm glad, because I watch the media coverage, of course, and there's a lot of people in the media who I have immense respect for. I'm glad it's starting to catch on. A couple things that I've been first on that's starting to catch on a little bit is A, the fact the Cowboys are cheap. I saw L. Duncan, who does a great job on Sports Center, was on First Take this morning, laid out almost identical stats to what I laid out, 2 weeks ago in terms of the Cowboys being dead last in cash spent, in terms of the fact that the Cowboys are the only team in the NFL who pays their quarterback $40 million to have 0 players on their roster, aside from the quarterback, making $20 million or more per year this season. Kudos, L. Duncan. Shout out to you. Laid out that same stat. Also, if I can compound on that, I saw this recently today, put it on my Instagram. I thought it was so interesting. Is the fact that the Cleveland Browns, what the Cleveland Browns doing? Holy cow, they gave Deshaun that money. What are they doing? The Cleveland Browns, this is interesting. They have 13 players in their roster making over $10 million per year. Deshaun Watson, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Joe Bitonio, Jack Conklin, Dalvin Tomlinson, Wyatt Teller, David Njoku, Grant Delpit, Zadarius Smith, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Every single one of those players make over $10 million, but the Cowboys can't find a way to pay Dak. Oh, again, can I reemphasize? Dead last in the NFL in cash spent. So the media's caught up to me on that the Cowboys are really cheap. Like Cincinnati Bengals cheap. And also the simple fact that, and I've been saying this since 2022, after Amari Cooper was traded. If you take out CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys receiving corps is bottom 5 in football. Jake Ferguson's a pretty good tight end. One could argue maybe even above average. But he's a good player. He's nowhere near like a Pro Bowl caliber guy. You think about somebody like Jalen Tolbert. He's done what since coming in the NFL? What's Jalen Tolbert done? Brandon Cooks. He takes top of the defense. Yeah, he did like in 2017. Now he's on a 6th team, if memory serves me correctly. He's coming into his 11th year in the NFL. And again, there's a reason he's been moved as many times as he's been moved. He is not a number 1 receiver, and these days I'm not sure he's quite a number 2 receiver. If he is, he's not a very good one. Not to mention the Cowboys' running game is led by Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle, with an offensive line that just lost Tyron Smith in the offseason, and their starting center, Tyler Biotish. In other words, the Cowboys' offense isn't very good, but because they have a elite quarterback, can we stop arguing this about Dak? He was top 5, top 3 in virtually every category that matters. I mean, yards, touchdown interception ratio, touchdowns total, passer rating, QBR, the whole bit. Accuracy, completion percentage, tight window throws, if we want to look at next-gen analytics. Dak's outstanding and CeeDee Lamb's outstanding. The fact that Dallas Cowboys have paid neither goes to the fact that Jerry Jones is, I think there's a number of factors that A, is cheap. That's undeniable. And the fact that he has, I don't know if he just wants to control the offseason headlines. That could be it. And so I've always said about Jerry Jones would rather never see a Super Bowl for the rest of his life than the Cowboys to ever be irrelevant. I mean, who's the big press conference in Dallas after their big playoff loss? Is it the quarterback, Dak Prescott? No, he's kind of vanilla. It doesn't give us really interesting responses. Is it Mike McCarthy? No, same story. Is it CeeDee Lamb or Micah Parsons? Well, not Lamb and not Parsons, although if you listen to Micah's podcast, you probably get a more truthful answer. No, it's the owner / general manager, Jerry Jones, who commands the attention and the adoration of the press in Dallas because he's interesting, because he gives you a good quote, because he gives shows like mine stuff to talk about. But in terms of running a football business, Dallas is as poorly run as there is in professional sports, I would argue. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.